When ascertaining if your freight rates are reasonable for local LTL movements, and what I mean by local is the driver and equipment returned to the origin at the end of the day, a shipper with sufficient shipping activity can approximate how much it would cost to make those deliveries by themselves using their own resources, that being in their own trucks, trailers, drivers, etc. The suggestion that a shipper may perform their own delivery may help when establishing reasonable freight rates with local LTL carriers. But many times deliveries will take the shipper more than one day using their own equipment. So the shipper might need to tender their regional and national deliveries to carriers who service these areas. When trying to understand how cost factors affect regional and national carriers, a shipper should try to understand expenses in a larger perspective. The shipper should approach managing rate fairness with regional and national carriers with more of a macro approach than a micro approach. I hope this video from Logistmetics explains this approach to you. It's the simple arithmetic that can be used when negotiating reasonable LTL freight rates in an oligopoly environment. Let's get started. What I mean by macro, by viewing things on a macro level, is you look at the carrier's income statement, the cost side of the carrier income statement, and you find these expenses in most cases. First, we'll start with the salaries and benefits, that being administrative and supervision, wages and miscellaneous, that being truck drivers and basically the rank and file, and finally benefits. When you add all these three items together, you'll get a total labor expense. Now let's look at non-labor expenses. Those are fuel, oil, lubricants and coolants, vehicle parts, vehicle maintenance, tire and tubes, and sundry expenses. When you add these items highlighted in blue together, you'll get an operating expense. Other expenses include general supplies, taxes and licenses, and insurances. The insurances I mean are cargo, loss and damage, fire, theft and collision, PL and PD. There'll be a communication and utilities expense, depreciation and amortization, rental and purchases of new equipment, building expense, disposal of equipment, miscellaneous expenses. And when we add everything here in blue, don't add double add, just add it once, together, you're going to get a total labor expense. Add your labor expense to your non-labor expense, and you'll get a total operating expense. You could, like I said, you can find these expenses in an income statement for a public LTL carrier, or sometimes you can get these numbers from different groups that they belong to. So, these are the expenses for a carrier with $500 million of expenses, and with these are basically an addition of the labor expense to the non-labor expense. Okay? Now, these numbers are all in dollars, monetary, and they're not going to be very useful in this type of analysis. So what we want to do is to change everything to a percent of total. That being, for 100% equals $500 million, and the administrative expense, all these expenses, all these items, are broken down so where the total labor expense plus the total non-labor expense equals 100%. Now let's see what this means and how increases affect it. Let's start with fuel, a simple example. Let's say fuel increases 20% rather quickly. Well, the net effect on the carrier's cost will be a 1.6 increase. So, if your rates are reasonable, you could be in a position to discuss with the carrier that a 20% increase is only really a 1.6% increase to their cost. And that would be 101.6 minus 100%. This type of analysis is pretty neat when you're trying to anticipate possible increases during budget time. What do I mean? Let's say the carrier knows he's going to have a 2% increase in administrative and supervision expenses. And let's further say there's going to be a 3% increase in the rank and file expenses, and their benefits are going to increase 2.5%. Let's further say that oil and lubricants are going to go up 10%. And parts will see a 2% increase. Maintenance will go up 1%. And tires and tubes go up 1%. Other than that, we're going to say that their insurance are going to go up 7%. Let's make that across the board for all insurance items. And let's just say we're going to have a 15% increase in communications and utilities, just to keep up with technology. Well, all these increases that are shown really come out to a 3.4% increase in the total cost to the carrier. Okay, once you've seen this, and let's say you agree and allow the carrier a 3.4% increase, what you can then do is to convert these back to 100%. And that's a pretty simple thing. I know there's an easier way to do this, but I'm just going to do this for the sake of demonstration. Oops, let's demonstrate. Boom. Okay? What we've done is now make adjustments in the carrier's expenses to reflect the 3.4% increase. And we've brought the total back to 100%. Then all you have to do is take this, move this into another worksheet, and you have yourself a new beginning from which you can negotiate with the carrier. I hope this is helpful for both the shipper and the carrier in understanding cost and determining reasonable freight rates.